So let's say now you have analyzed 20 companies per week, or like at 500 when we open application, we have somewhere between 600 to 1,000 companies applying per batch. You need to sort of decide what you want to do, like which companies you want to invest. And we're really glad to have Tomas Korte here with us. I'm actually curious to know who knows who AngelPad is here in the audience. Okay, for those who doesn't know who AngelPad is, you should definitely look at what they do. They are always voted as one of the best accelerators in the country. And you started in 2010 in the Bay Area, and also has the operation, apparently moved to New York too.
That's right.
Tomas, please tell us, how do you select out, like you see all those great things, what do you do to select them and help them grow too?
I'll do that. Thanks for having me, and thanks for all of you to be here. It disheartens me to see only like 5 hands going up, but I have to blame just myself because we are not very loud in the marketplace. We don't talk much about us. We're usually very quiet and have our deal flow very internally from companies that know us or that have gone through the program. But let me tell you a little bit about what I'll be talking about who I am, what I do, and hopefully we'll have plenty of time to take questions as well. So first thing is I changed the name of the talk. Rather than picking companies, which is the easy part, it's about picking the winners. Because that's where the money comes back. Picking companies is just spending money. Picking winners is actually making money with them. I'm on Twitter. Twitter is Thomas K. But why do I even stand up here and tell you anything about selecting companies? I've made about 120 investments over the past 6 years, the vast majority of them as personal investments. I've only had an LP fund for about the past year, and it's a tiny, tiny, tiny fund. To date, we've had 15 exits. Many of them actually are doing still really well, the companies. 15 have exited with a total exit value of just over $1 billion. And I think there's going to be a few more coming. Now, what you don't see on this slide is all the companies that I met and talked to get those 120. So I've met with or screened about 15,000 companies to select these 120 companies. AngelPad AngelPad is a mentorship program. We run like an accelerator, 2 cohorts per year in San Francisco and New York. We select about 15 companies per cohort, and we get about 2,000 applications. We interview about 200 to 300 companies in person to select the 15. And our general thesis is that very, very broadly speaking, not as focused as Pedro, is that if we help companies at the very earliest stage, literally within 6, 8, 12 months of founding the companies, usually just the founders, if we help them with everything at that point in a really, really intensive manner, there's going to be the delta between success and time to success is going to be much larger. And to date, I think we've proven that true with the exits that we have, but we're still changing our model. We're still figuring a lot of things out. We are a startup just a few years old that is modifying a lot of things all the time. Just a couple of weeks ago, actually this last week at South by, they released the official rankings. This is about the only true ranking where all the data is correlated. It's a collaboration between Rice University and MIT. They get all the data, all the valuations, all the exit values, everything. They survey all the founders that have gone through the programs and rank them. They did about 200 accelerators, and I'm very happy to say that we came out first on that one. But you all knew that if you listened to Dave McClure last year on stage here, or rather in San Francisco, where he said it's probably the best accelerator program in the US. Thank you, Dave. That's right. Well, it's actually very incestuous because Dave is an LP in the fund, Pedro is an LP in the fund, so it's all comes around, goes around here. But let's talk about the selecting companies and selecting founders specifically. Now remember, I talk about very, very early stage. I talk about really seed stage and not even A, like the pre-A. So anything that is like $1 million to $3 million in new money into the company, valuations of $5 million to $10 million, plus minus $2 million on each side. That's what I'm talking about, which I think is a very different way of selecting companies than in the A rounds and the B rounds and C rounds, where you have a lot more information, a lot more quantitative data about the companies. So unlike what was said earlier in the panel, I think it's really important that you do fall in love first. You really do want to fall in love with these founders. But then you want to spend a lot of time in rationalizing if you actually want to get married. So don't just fall in love and run out to Vegas and get married to these founders. You have many, many years ahead with them. And I think it's the rationalizing of, should I make these investments after you really like the founder and really like the team and see yourself possibly working with them in a small manner is where the hard work comes in. And that's what I'll be talking about, the rationalizing the investments. And when you look at, broadly speaking, this is no news to any of you, but it's about the market, the team, the vision, the product, and the traction. Those are the 5 things that everybody's looking at. Those are the things that I tell my founders that they need to be able to articulate very clearly, very crisply, and have thought about in much depth about all of them. And this is what we spent 12 weeks doing with them. We don't build the product next to them. We don't explain to them how to hire. We don't do all these things that you can learn or read somewhere. It's really like the in-depth, every single company individually, which market they're going after. Is there a bigger market? What do we need to do about the team? What kind of team do we have to build to make this a large company? What's the vision, the really big vision behind this? Because let's face it, unless you have a really big vision for something, you'll probably never get there. Like you want to shoot for the moon and land on the stars. And if you don't have a founder that is willing to do that and has this vision, you'll just have very small chances of a very large outcome. And as much as I love founders and love working with them every day, I am a financially driven investor. So if it doesn't have a chance of making money, I will not do it. Though we do have the .org in our domain, the .com was squatted, and they will not give it to us. We are a for-profit, and I think that's really important for all of us in the room always to remember. Even the pro bono that was alluded to earlier, even the pro bono investors, quote-unquote pro bono investors, have a financial return motive. And let me jump to the next slide. This is a quote from Warren Buffett. If you have if a great team meets a lousy market, it's the market's reputation that stays intact. And this is something that I've really, really taken to heart. Early on when I invested, I looked always at the team first, and I got very excited about the fact, if you found a great team, some ex-Google engineers, rock stars, great reputation, building something, I could get very excited. But a few times it happened that those founders actually had fairly small ideas, and the market that they were going after didn't sustain a large company, and the companies eventually failed or pivoted. That was the better case outcome. And I think it's really important that when you start looking at big outcomes, that you start with a big market. And if you don't start with a big market, it doesn't matter what everything else you have, you will not be able to have a large outcome. It doesn't matter if you have a rockstar team. It doesn't matter if you have crazy traction. The market has to sustain the outcome. But the market is also something that it's not just what is there today. When you look at the tech unicorns that everyone's talking about, the companies that are valued over $1 billion, they all operate in a really large market. It's Zenefits in insurance, Instacart in groceries, Uber in transportation, Snapchat in communication. Every single one of those is a multi-billion-dollar market. But some of these markets weren't multi-billion-dollar markets when they pitched the seed. Take Uber, for example. Uber basically pitched, and I still have the email from their original pitch, they pitched a service for really wealthy people to get a black car much easier than having their admin do it at home or in their office. That was what Uber pitched. But the vision was far beyond that. So sometimes it's really about the future market and what can be done in the future using mostly new technologies, because that's certainly where I believe most of you want to invest in. What I only invest in is in technology-driven companies. And having founders that see these future markets, have a thesis around it, and really go after them, I think is really, really key to an existing market to disrupt, but also a future market that today doesn't exist, but they already see or start seeing. Some examples, if people today talk about the connected home, and not the connected home where like your Nest tells you that your house is on fire on your cell phone, but like a way more intelligent home, something that is as smart as some of the systems that we see in our cell phone, where your filter is being changed by technology or get alerted to. Those are really big markets that today basically don't exist. The same with cars. Most of the technology, we pay more money for our cars than any other technology piece that we own. The technology that is in the car is appallingly simple. And there's big disruption to be done, and there's a lot of cars out there. So these future markets is really, really important to look at. The team. Most investors will tell you it comes down to the team is the most important part in your investment decision. And I tend to agree. Once you have a big market, the team certainly, like if you don't have the team, and by the way, all these things kind of go in hand, but if you don't have this great, passionate, hungry, driven team, and that's, you look for humble entrepreneurs. I look for passionate, hungry, driven people to just, they can't do anything else but their startup. And then I look for an unfair advantage. That has come up a couple of times. I'm looking for people, and I think everybody should look for people that have this unique insight, this unfair advantage, something that they've experienced, something that they have known from either personal experiences or from work experience, and have a connection to the very problem. Founders that are just opportunistic, finding a big market and kind of building the company around that market is not my cup of tea, and I haven't seen them succeed, out-succeed the other founders that truly believe in what they're doing every day. They go to work. They have to go to work every day, and you might as well rather do something that you truly understand and love, and that is what that unfair advantage is. Vision, and more important than vision, even the ambition to have that vision. When founders come to us, we kind of do the throw on the deep side of the pool question. It was like, what's the vision? What's the biggest thing you can possibly see this being, in 5 years, in 10 years? And it's really difficult for most founders, for most anybody, to truly think outside the box and say, this could be really large. This could be, completely changing something we do. And oftentimes it sounds just utterly silly when you hear yourself saying it. And Uber is a great example for that too. If you have the ambition to fundamentally change how people are moving around, eventually how stuff is moving around, articulating that vision and telling somebody is like, dude, you're smoking something. Isn't it a bit too big with your starting with your little limos and then going to changing the world, or Airbnb, fundamentally changing how we travel and how we stay in different cities. And the ambition to get there, the drive and passion is really what great founders are about and what great companies come together. And with the vision, ambition, you have a team that can articulate that to other people, because the hardest part in technology today is hiring. Certainly in San Francisco and New York, and sooner or later it's going to be the same thing in Miami. Finding the people and inspiring to work for your company instead of the 20 other companies that offer the same benefits and the same money and the same cool office with lava lamps and free coffee and free everything is just there. So why is it your company? And the vision is what makes people want to work at a company. Product and design. And this is almost very specific to angel investors or relatively new investors. They spend a lot of time looking at the product that the company has built already. I don't look at the product that a company has built. I don't care about what they've built. Matter of fact, whatever they have built, we're probably going to rebuild in the next 6 to 12 months anyway. But what I do look at is the product design and the design sensibilities of the team. Not just the visual design, but how do they use technologies and mesh them together to come up with something new? And what is their understanding of the UX and the UI that will interact with the user, the individual if it's a B2C company, or the business user if it is a B2B company. And that's where the product part comes in really strongly. A lot of investors spend way too much time looking at the current product that a company has built. And the last thing is traction. And early on someone said, if all in doubt, just invest in traction. And I think in later stage rounds, that's actually true. In seed stage and A stage, I have seen that traction is often a missing indicator of success, a false indicator of success. Look at this graph here. There's 2 companies. Where the boxes is where you will be investing. Which company will you be investing at? Right? If you take off everything that goes up and to the right, and you basically make a line. Oops, sorry. If you make a line where the boxes are, you will invest in the company that is further up, right? More traction. But when you look at truly successful companies, they almost all of them have an inflection point where they start having a hypergrowth and an exponential growth. And most often, I don't see companies having a hypergrowth with a strong initial traction growth. They have nothing. It bubbles around, and all of a sudden it explodes up. And that's the kind of company that I'm looking for personally, rather than the company that is 6 or 8 months old and already has revenue and can very predictably track that. Now, On the flip side of this, I'm not saying traction is bad, because traction is very good. But traction is an indicator that someone is paying something for whatever you have to offer. And having early traction is a very nice way to validate that. Because if people say, oh, I like this, the next question should be, do you like it enough to pay for it? And if people actually do pay for it, that's a pretty valid point that you're actually solving someone's problem. But oftentimes we actually ask our companies to just stop thinking about the money after they have a certain amount, and then really rethink how can we get from a linear growth to an explosive growth. And oftentimes that means actually not having revenue for some time. So if I round it up in one sentence, what you should be looking for is smart-driven, charismatic founders with an unfair advantage, taking on a huge market, using technology as a leverage, and you really like them. Because at the end of the day, you spend time on actually meeting them and over time interacting with them. And if you do take that time to make direct investments, you might as well do it with people that you like and enjoy being with, because otherwise you can just give money to Pedro and to Dave and to me and manage your money and never have to worry about meeting these founders. And with that, hopefully I have some time to have some questions. Oh, really quickly, if you go to angelpad.org, you actually get like an update twice a year with all of our companies and like a login to talk to me and things like that. So you should all be doing that. Go ahead.
So, terrific talk. Thank you very much. Let me quote you early on. You said, "We help them with everything."
Yes.
Can you be more specific as to what kind of things you help them with? As an example, do you house them?
Yes.
Okay. So when you house them,
or feed them, lots of beer.
Now they're right under your nose. You really do house them.
Yes, we really do house them. So very, very core part of AngelPad is that we are, this is actually the AngelPad office in New York that you see there through glass, some artistic picture. But it's very important for us to be in the same place. We call it the bubble because no one else comes in there. There's us, the two partners, and the founders. There's no employees, there's no mentors, there's no investors, there's no service provider, there's nobody in there. It's us with the companies every day. And it's very specific to individual companies. Of course, we have group talks where we talk about fundraising in general, or maybe product design, some more specific, even down to I don't know, like AdWords or I don't know, Twitter ads or something like this. A lot of these stuff. But we have all the expertise within the team. What we really do is, most of you mentor companies, right? And you see them maybe every 2 weeks, maybe every month or so, and you kind of check in, and you imagine we do that, but we have a one-day iteration, right? We see them Monday, we see them again Tuesday, we see them again Wednesday, we see them again Thursday. We see them for half an hour. They spend work 20 hours, and then we see them again for half an hour. And so we have very, very fast iterations. We don't help them hire people, no. They're usually not at the stage where they need to hire people. The people that we accept into AngelPad usually have the technical skills to build what they have to build. So hiring is not part of that. Hiring usually comes past the seed round. Yeah.
I want to go back to your slide about investing in traction, and I'm curious about your experience in investing in traction. The conventional wisdom in startup investments when you're getting in early is that you're going to completely lose your money on half your investments. But what you're presenting here in terms of investing in traction is, although you want to invest in the exponential growth case, that linear growth case is not that bad, actually. You most likely won't lose your money. But I'm curious, in your experience, when a company has reasonable traction, how often do you still lose your money?
So it's actually remarkably few times that we actually lose our money because most of these companies have built phenomenal. So this is the downside protection that you all should be thinking about that no one ever talks about. The downside protection of technology is that you have an acqui-hire, and if you have a team that builds great technology, hires great engineers, you will be able to sell this company and more or less recoup your investment around that. So that the complete downside of losing money is actually very small if you have a well-curated portfolio. I think here, the up and to the right, yeah, it does look okay. And if I'm like a Wall Street investor, that looks fantastic. It just goes up and to the right forever, fantastic. But you're right. There are companies that are failing, and so we may recoup our investment. There's a disproportionate amount that are failing, and we want them to fail, right? Not all of them can be billion-dollar exits. The companies that kind of go like this, there's just not enough of them to pay for the failure. So we need to have the exponential growth. And for the founders, for the investors, for us, the early mentors, it's exactly the same work to create a company with a hockey stick curve than a company with a linear growth. So we'd rather go for the hockey stick with a higher chance of failing than having the safe bet, which is safer but still not a very safe. David is going to just whiplash me for this one. Go ahead, David. The plus one?
Actually, I'm going to give you a little bit of a softball one. So you guys have had a very, very large exit with MoPub, which was acquired by Twitter. And I don't know if you can state the amount, but I would guess that was pretty close to a unicorn, at least when Twitter went public.
Yeah.
I guess two questions. One is, did you do any follow-on investment in that after the initial incubation stage? And knowing what you know now, would you have advised them to sell to Twitter or wait?
So I don't want to go too much into detail about the specific, because they were acquired by a publicly traded company, and they're still operating inside of that company. But I think, yes, we did make follow-on investments. Like I said, I didn't have a fund until about a year and a half ago, so it was actually just me personally making those follow-on investments. And we just because it was my personal money, we've been very selective in making follow-on investments, and they were actually we're not taking our entire pro rata. I think, seeing would I advise them to exit or not? It's really not my role to advise them or not. This is 3 years out where I spend every day with them. Past AngelPad, I become good friends with most of the founders, and I become that buddy they go to. I'm not the day-to-day advisor. They had Excel, they had Michael Deering to really talk to them day to day. I think there's a point where every company will exit, either to the public markets or to the private markets. Generally speaking, as my investor head on, if a company that is about to go public, that is as prominent as Twitter, wants to acquire you 4 days before they go public, that is not a bad outcome. I think we have one last question, yeah. Oh, 2 last questions, okay, 1, 2.
One last question from Ben, and then we'll hold the second one.
Okay, good. So sorry, I was just going to follow up on the linear versus exponential. You mentioned that you try to take companies from linear to exponential. I'm just wondering what you do in order to kind of make that change.
It's, if I could give you a formula, I would publish it and sell a book and probably make more money. I think it's, there is no formula. It is hard work every single day. It's like they're all different companies, they're all different industries, they're all different problems. And it really is just, for the most part, being there, going through these problems, and addressing things head on. What I found is that today, a lot of founders have very, very little kind of mirror that's being held up. Excuse me. and if we're in a position where we are investors so early on, and we're pretty significant investors in all these companies, that we can be that, right? And we've built that relationship, sitting next to them, they know if I yell, it's not because I'm angry, it's because out of passion. They know, I know if they yell back, I know exactly where they're coming from because I've known them. We've been at boot camp together, for 3 months. So I think there is no easy answer on how to do that, apart from like hard work. And I think the one secret sauce, and it's not that secret, is you start with an enormous application pool, you're very diligent in screening them, and you end up with a tiny, tiny group of people that you actually work with.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.